Welcome back. We'll continue exploring what we already know about electromagnetics. Yes, we know Maxwell's equation in both differential form and integral form. Where do we go next? Let's consider two regions. Region 1, region 2, separated by some surface. The constitutive parameters of region 1 are epsilon 1, mu 1, sigma 1, and for region 2 it is epsilon 2, mu 2 and sigma 2. And the fields in region 1 are H1 D1 and in region 2 are H2 D2, magnetic field strength and electric flux density respectively. Now we ask the question, is there any relationship between H1 and H2? In order to answer this question, we go back to Maxwell's equation. That is our foundation. So which equation? The Ampere's law. Close integral H dot dl equal to surface integral J plus del D by del T dot ds bar. And in order to apply this equation for the given problem, we have to identify S naught and C naught. Let S naught be a rectangular surface. Half of it lies in region 1, half of it lies in region 2. And it is bound by contour C naught. We can now specify three unit vectors. N cap, normal to the surface S, separating the two regions. N naught cap, normal to the rectangular region S naught. And tau cap, tangential to both the boundary S and surface S naught. Notice that N naught cap, tau cap and N cap are orthogonal to each other and form a right-handed system. Now the rectangular surface S naught has a height delta h and a length delta L. Let's first ask the question, what is ds bar? Ds bar is delta h times delta L times N naught cap. So N naught cap is the unit normal coming out of surface S naught. Now the moment N naught cap is specified, the direction of C naught turns out to be counterclockwise, so that as we go along the boundary of S naught, N naught cap and the path C naught will form a right-handed system. As delta H goes to 0, S naught goes to 0, and if D is finite, the first surface integral on the right hand side vanishes. Therefore, that will be a 0. That will not contribute to the total integration. Now let's integrate H dot dl around the contour C naught. In region 1, H dot dl is H1 dot delta L tau cap, as we are moving along the direction of tau cap on the lower edge of the rectangle. In region 2, H dot dl is minus H2 dot delta L tau cap, because we are moving in the opposite direction to that of tau cap. As delta H goes to 0, the integral has no contribution from the vertical portions of C naught. The right hand side is quite straightforward. At limit delta H tends to 0, J dot delta H delta L times N naught cap. That's very straightforward. Let us observe limit delta H tends to 0, J bar delta H. For example, we have a finite value of J1 and a finite value of delta H, which is delta H1. So J1 times delta H1 has certain area. This is area of that rectangle. Now let's choose another value of J, J2, and another value of delta H called delta H2, such that J2 times delta H2 is equal to J1 times delta H1. We can keep doing that. Similarly, we have J3 delta H3 equal to J1 delta H1, and J4 delta H4 is also equal to the same area, and so on. What we notice is, as delta H keeps shrinking, the value of J keeps going towards infinity, but the product of J delta H remains finite, and that is known as the surface current Js bar. So limit delta H tends to 0, J bar delta H is equal to, by definition, Js bar, the surface current. The units are ampere per meter. Now it's very straightforward. We knock off delta L from the top equation and we get H1 minus H2 dot tau cap is equal to Js dot N naught cap. And since tau N N naught cap form a right-handed system, tau cross N cap gives N naught cap. So replace N naught cap by tau cross N cap, and what we get is H1 minus H2 dot tau cap is equal to Js bar dot tau cap cross N cap. Now we go through a series of vector manipulation. This is what we had got in the previous slide, and we start performing certain operations. Let us consider this vector result. A dot B cross C is equal to B dot C cross A. We know this result. Apply this to the right hand side. A is Js bar, B is tau cap, C is N cap. Therefore, right hand side can be rearranged as tau dot N cap cross Js bar. That comes from using the first and second part of the identity. Now what do we do next? We will, since tau cap is an arbitrary vector, we are going to take it off and we write the next result, which is in general applicable on the surface. And take a cross product of both the sides with N cap, and then use the vector identity A cross B cross C is equal to B A dot C minus C A dot B. This is called back cap rule, if you want to remember it that way. And here A is N cap, B is N cap, and C is Js bar. Straightforward application. Think about it for a moment. It's very easy. It will be this value here. Notice here N cap is a vector orthogonal to the surface S, the boundary surface S. Js is a surface current flowing on the surface. Therefore, N cap and Js are orthogonal to each other, and hence the dot product turns out to be 0. And N cap dot N cap is unity, we know that, and rearrange N cross H1 minus H2 as H2 minus H1, take the minus sign to the other side. What we have is a nice result, N cross H2 minus H1 equal to Js bar. This is the boundary condition that is satisfied by the tangential component of the H field. Why do we say tangential component? Because when you take N cross of H, where N is the unit normal to a surface, what we get is a tangential part of H to that surface. Now we ask the next question, how about the normal component? Once again, we will go back to the same problem of two regions separated by a surface S, and we use Gauss' law to find out the relationship between D1 and D2. For this, we construct a pillbox of volume V with a surface S. Half of it is lying in region 1, other half is lying in region 2. And again, we define the unit normal N cap to that surface, and A0 is the area of the flat surface, A1 is the area of the curved surface, delta H is the height of the pillbox. Now as delta H goes to 0, A1 goes to 0. The surface integral has two parts, contributions, one from the top surface, one from the bottom surface. Let us look at the contribution from the top surface. D dot ds bar will be D2 because it is in region 2 dot N cap A0. A0 is the area, N cap is the unit outward normal which is in the direction of N cap itself. For the bottom surface, bottom flat surface, it will be minus D1 dot N cap A0 because unit normal direction to that bottom surface is in the opposite direction to that of N cap. Hence, it picks up a negative sign. Right hand side is very straightforward. Limit delta H tends to 0, QEV, delta V is nothing but delta H A0. That's very, very fine for nice result. Cancel off A0. What we have is a simple relationship where we have used the surface charge density QES, which is limit delta H tends to 0, QEV delta H. And what we get is the boundary condition for the normal component of the electric flux density D. So D2 minus D1 dot n cap is QEF. By using the same logic, we can get the other two boundary conditions as well. My request is try to derive all these results to convince yourself that these results are indeed correct and they are very straightforward. Well, we can almost write it looking at the other set of results because there is a lot of symmetry in these equations. So we'll keep using this concept of symmetry as we go along in this course. Now, the next important concept is called Poynting theorem. We talk about the concept of power and energy in this theorem. You have heard of it, you have learnt it. We are going to relive it, we go through it once again to make ourselves very familiar with it. For this result, we are going to choose the two Maxwell's curl equations, del cross E and del cross H. Take the first equation and define two quantities, Mi and Md. I referenced impressed. That means this is a source, actual source. We still don't know the composition of this actual source. We'll keep it as Mi until we come to a stage where we understand the meaning of Mi itself. Md is equal to del B by del T. This is something like magnetic displacement current, hence the subscript D. This is very useful just to keep our math, the symbols simple. That's all. Otherwise, the equations keep growing a lot. Now we take the dot product of H on both the sides, and what we have is H dot del cross E is minus H dot Mi minus H dot Md. Exactly do the same thing for the other curl equation. This is what the beautiful part of symmetry is all about. Once again, we define J as sum of Ji, which is the impressed current, the source current, Jc, which is the conduction current. Jc is sigma times E, we know that. Jd is the displacement current, del D by del T. And what do we do now? Take E dot of that equation and we have a result very symmetric to the previous one. Take the difference of the two. So sub H dot del cross E minus E dot del cross H gives a long equation. It looks long, but there is a lot of order, lot of symmetry in this equation. What I want you to observe in this course is these symmetries, these orders. There is a beauty in these equations. As long as you recognize this, it looks beautiful. You will enjoy this. Now we have a vector identity del cross A. Del dot A cross B is B dot del cross A minus A dot del cross B, and if you compare the previous equation and this equation, you can straight away say that the left hand side turns out to be del dot E cross H. Oh, looks somewhat familiar. Yes, this will get more familiarity with this if you make a few minor modifications to it. I'll show that in a moment. Let's go back to this H dot Md. Remember what is Md? It is the magnetic displacement current, which is del B by del T. And B is equal to mu dot H. Take out mu is a scalar, not a function of time. Take it out of this differentiation. H dot del H bar by del T. Convince yourself that this can be written as half mu del by del T of H dot H. If you simply differentiate it, you will get the result. Please convince yourself it is indeed correct. H dot is H square. Therefore, it is half mu del H square by del T. We can do exactly the same thing for E dot JD. We can show that it is equal to half epsilon del E square by del T. Notice E square, E is the magnitude of that vector electric field strength, E bar. Okay. E dot JC is sigma E square, once again straightforward because JC is sigma E bar. Substitute all of this in the previous equation and apply Gauss law. Once you apply Gauss law, the volume integral del dot something something dV will convert into E cross H dot ds surface close on a closed surface, and rearrange the terms. And this is where I want you to spend one moment, take a break, pause the video, make sure these terms are indeed correct. We have just rearranged everything so that there is an order, there is some physical significance that can be attached to this equation. So far it has been just mathematical manipulation, but now in the next slide we are talking about the physical significance of it. What does that yellow one represent? E cross H. E has the unit of volt per meter, H as the unit ampere per meter. Product of that is volt ampere per meter square, that is like power per unit area. So the if you integrate over the complete surface, then you get the total power exiting volume V, which is bound by the closed surface S. This is the power flow. Hence, E cross H is known as the power density, also Poynting vector. It is a vector, it has a value. Value is equal to the power density associated with this electromagnetic field or electromagnetic field, that's better at this stage, and it has a direction. That means it tells us in which direction the power is flowing. If you calculate the surface integral of E cross H over the entire surface, what we get is the total power exiting that volume V. And what quantity? The next one, which is rate of change of magnetic energy stored in volume V. Similarly, one is rate of change of electric energy stored in volume V. The last one is the power that is lost in volume V. All this talks about how power is going away in a particular way, and this should be equal to the power that is supplied by the sources, power balance. That is conservation of power. This is a very useful result, very interesting result. This is a very powerful result as well. With this, we are able to calculate the energy associated with electromagnetic field, the power associated with electromagnetic field, if there are sources, how the source will supply power to the system, and if there is conductivity or if there is loss, we can also estimate how the power is lost in the environment.